Hello and welcome to another edition of Indiepocalypse Radio. On the way before I take a couple weeks break off as I travel around. Travel around, I say with intense quotes, which is to say, within an hour or so, because it's all local stuff. But that said, welcome again to Indiepocalypse Radio, your host, your spot where you talk to people within the indie games and art space. We are here with a trio of guests from brand fresh new editions of Indiepocalypse. We're starting off with someone. Okay, never mind. We're good. I am Andrew, the host of that aforementioned show, the organizer of the aforementioned Indiepocalypse, your monthly anthology of alternative games. Up first, our guest from one of the newest issues of Indiepocalypse with Hollow Hills National Park is Jacob Potterfield. Jacob, how are you doing today?
Doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Perfect. Now, I have a question for you right up at the top, the kind of like stock Indiepocalypse question, which is, hey, how did you find this thing?
I guess looking around itch.io and on the various social medias,
Okay.
I kind of see you referenced a lot, and pretty sure I've heard you on other podcasts and stuff. So just
Have I,
kind of ambiently in the indie soup.
where have I been? I was like, you should let me know about these podcasts. I don't remember being on them. No, I think no,
Maybe
you're right.
maybe
I was on like
about the
Critical like forever ago, I think, which is
okay.
probably most likely that. I'm trying to think of other shows I had been on. Uh, but that's the problem with video games. They don't have enough. They don't have enough podcasts. Which a weird thing to say of anything in life,
Yeah.
but they're handy places for people to meet, I think. Uh,
Yeah.
but I ask, of course, because I'm like, hey, the only way to get people, the only way this thing ends if no people submit anymore, and so I got to go, hey, how do people get here, and find their ways towards submitting. And speaking of submitting, if people are unfamiliar with Hollow Hills National Park, how would you describe it?
Um, I would describe it as one of those games where you're presented with the big mysterious world and you kind of wander around and figure out what's going on in
Yeah, that's
3D.
the exploration of space genre, um,
Exactly.
whatever that means. To however you must describe things to kind of like, cram your game into uh, a gameplay centric description.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, and it was also sort of like it's also a little bit like art gallery-ish, a little like museum-ish. It's a very like art first kind of like visual art first sort of experience. So yeah.
Yeah, which is like it's something I think about a lot because this anthology deals a lot when in the, I guess, like uh walking simulator, no gameplay space, so to speak. Which, if all of them are like most of them are all like very drastically different from one another, like conceptually and thematically, but gameplay kind of like jams them all within the same category very awkwardly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that's the thing about games. It's such a bizarre. I mean, I guess you get the same thing in like filmmaking and I don't know poetry or whatever. But
Right.
it's like, well, it's sort of this machine that runs inputs and it creates stuff via instructions you give it. But what's and we've kind of agreed on like control schemes where people aren't like completely confused when they pick up a controller or a keyboard. But beyond that, yeah, there really isn't that much that unifies.
Right. There's kind of, and I feel like we are increasingly entering like this more. I think I have the feeling. Now, this is a question I keep meaning. I keep meaning to ask online somehow, but that doesn't sound self-important. I haven't found a way to ask that, but I've been getting a lot more follows on Itch, like in the last few months. Like it is like peaked, where it's like I routinely get like, oh, 5 in a day, and it feels
Mhm.
like people are going back towards Itch more. Or
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, again, I can't speak to really anything
right,
except my very narrow experience of the internet, but it does feel like there's some fatigue around these sort of, and I mean, I'm on Blue Sky, and that's not even like owned by a massive corporation yet, but it still feels like people are tired of putting all of their eggs in these very sort of mercurial baskets that
right,
can just be like sold off or, you know, uh, data mined or so on and so forth. It just feels like people want a more, and I mean, there's that big controversy with Itch even too.
right,
However, so I don't know, like. Does everybody go back to micro blogging, or do you just, I mean, for those of us that can like unplug completely from the internet and like go meet people, like that's great, but it's not viable, and at least in the US, it's not even necessarily safe anymore. So it's just like
right. The thing like, oh
very
yeah, of course, just like travel to events and meet people in person. Or it's like, what if you don't live anywhere near that has any kind of local events? You have to travel out of state. This is speaking to people just within the U.S.
yeah, right.
Never mind
Yeah.
getting here.
And also like the accessibility on all kinds of different levels. Like I know from my experience at GDC, it wasn't some events were better than others, but it wasn't like the most. It's a very stimulating environment, it's not
Yes.
the most accommodating for neurodiverse folks. I know there's more awareness of that, but like, I don't know, like I'm just like a regular like white guy too. It's not even like I don't have to deal with all that other stuff. Coming from a different background, and I was still kind of like struggling in those kinds of environments. And I think that's why a lot of these sort of queer online communities pop up in the first place to kind of accommodate those needs. But it's like, how do you make that sustainable and not
Right.
and not be automatically subject to, the whims of a massive corporation?
Right. Or like a
Um,
platform,
right.
or any kind of like, or even just like a hierarchy and an infrastructure.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, I think the positive thing though is that that is like a need that people have and are willing to like put in some effort to like make that happen, and maybe
Yeah.
like increasingly there's an awareness of like, I think people are enthusiastic, especially in the indie game space, about coming together and yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know, trying to figure it out and have spaces that are more accommodating.
Yeah,
uh
I have seen like we had our everyone got their trial run of like what online events work mean,
yeah.
and they've have their problems where I've done one and basically it was me sitting at my computer for 6 hours while one person came up to my digital booth. Uh, but having like hybrid or especially like a big thing of like people can be like speakers no matter where they are, and having like you know
Yeah.
check out room X Y or the online room where the online speakers are, where usually those people would be completely excluded from these events because they couldn't travel to like the U.S. to just do like a give a talk.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's cool. I think, yeah, some kind of hybrid thing, but yeah, I don't know. It all just takes time and resources,
Yeah.
and I think games themselves can be kind of a I mean, they're like, you need a, I guess they're more accessible than ever to make in some ways, but also, it's not like making a drawing or something. There's still a level of infrastructure and time commitment you need to make them. But
Right. If
yeah,
even just like the hardware requirements of needing a computer, or some kind
yeah,
of that, more and more it is kind of like inherited, I guess, of having a computer, but they're not cheap, you know.
yeah. Well, I mean, that is a kind of a cool thing that I do shoot for in my games, and maybe some more than others, but I kind of enjoy the technical challenge of
Yeah.
like, um, you know, uh, not if you're gonna use ray tracing or something that's gonna be super GPU intensive, make sure that it's actually like integral to the look and the feel of the thing that you're using. But like you don't you don't need all that stuff. Like
Right.
like I use Unreal Engine, which is like stereotypically sort of a I think people have the perception that it's a very, intense, sort of resource hog type thing, and it like absolutely can be, but there are actually a lot of ways you can basically just strip out all the bells and whistles that you're not currently using, and it actually can be pretty, performant and lightweight. It's just kind of a tool.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to kind of understand what you're making and kind of suit uh the technology to the thing you're making. But yeah.
Yeah, because like, having people, it's important to, if you're making games, it's nice if people can play them,
Yeah.
uh without having to just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna. Especially, I think there's like when things are free, there's people the assumption like, oh, this is just a thing that anyone can play, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Well,
And
and like you can like look on Steam or whatever, where I
yeah,
guess that's basically the only platform that has like reliable like statistics on what people are actually running with, and it's much lower than what you'd expect.
right,
And I think there's a vocal minority of, the 12 people that can afford like 5080s or whatever that get really uppity about, you know, uh, performance and so on. But like, I don't think that's the majority of people, and it's certainly not the majority of people playing indie games.
yeah, yeah. No,
I mean,
I've got myself. My computer is, I don't know, 10 years old maybe at the best,
yeah, yeah,
and my video card is hand me down, and
yeah,
it's not. I don't think it's like a good hand me down even,
yeah.
but it runs
And I
most
mean,
stuff
yeah,
that I need it to run.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's kind of a shame that Unity stopped supporting like a lot of like WebGL stuff natively. I think there's like other ways of doing that, but it seems like we've kind of got away from in the last few Unity and Unreal releases doing like web only stuff.
Right.
Um,
And web was usually, you generally basically have no. I mean, there's always still some hardware requirements, but
yeah,
much much lower. Uh, and then
yeah,
also, no one has to download anything. They can just like, oh yeah,
exactly.
I want to play this game. I just click the play button on itch, and then I'm just playing this game.
And I think that's a huge part of like getting people through the door too. It's like how do you reduce the friction and barrier to entry into your experience, because it is kind of a big ask to particularly in this space. I think if you're committing to like a whatever, a $40, $60 Steam game, it's like okay, whatever. But like if it's this thing and you don't know and it's weird and you don't know
Right.
the creator and you're just like taking a chance on it, is a lot to ask for somebody to like download it and then make sure it's compatible and so on and so forth. So I am
Right.
always looking like
Download and install it, and that a weirdness of how often do people install things still.
yeah,
Like without a piece of software doing that for you.
yeah, Yeah, exactly. And sometimes Windows is like, is this a virus? And you have to
Yes,
whitelist it, so on and so forth.
the sign of a
But
quality indie game,
yeah, exactly. If it's flagged by Windows Defender.
which is
But
almost always every single one of them.
yeah, basically. But yeah, I didn't mean to go off on such like a technical tangent because my interests are more like trained as a painter, so that's kind of what actually interests me about
Right,
making games is all of that fun art stuff.
right,
But I guess it is kind of an interesting point that you can't really talk about games without getting like lost in the soup of the technical like implementation side in a way that I don't think when you talk about, I guess maybe if you talk about movie people, they inevitably like start talking about like cameras
right,
and
right,
frames and stuff. But like when I talk to like painters, I'm not like, hey man, that brush is sick. How does that run? Is that
right.
like
Well, tell me
it's
about your
just such a
pigments. Where did you get those pigments from?
and I mean I do have those conversations too, but
Right.
they're not you usually engage with the work more
Yes.
first, and that can be kind of a frustrating thing in like the art game space where people are kind of stuck on like, oh, what shader is that versus like, okay, but
Right.
what did you mean by using that shader? What does that art style make you feel or
Right.
whatever?
Right. They don't want to engage with the work. They want to kind of like intuit like the very surface level uh, of like, oh well, that's a really cool effect. How did you make it? How
Right.
how can I make it?
Yeah. Which is understandable. I mean, do you think though that's like maybe like technical literacy being higher than like liberal arts, like art
Yes.
literacy? Like, is that because I mean, I'm not trying to like call people like dumb or ignorant
No, no.
either. Like, we get
I think
that
this is
response.
something that I've been like experiencing. I think it is slightly changing as people like yourself and other people who are coming from like different art fields and getting into
Mhm.
games. Um, it brings a different because I feel like a lot of, or if not the majority, at least the loudest, I would say, is is especially the people with the money, which puts them in the most visible spaces. Feel like they're more coming from like tech or software backgrounds,
Mhm.
in such that like you know, uh, what is interesting is like the tech solution to your game, and like you can build a lot of games from a technical standpoint without kind of like even doing at least consciously and sometimes even unconsciously perhaps not engaging with your own creation artistically, uh, because you're like more
Yeah, it's almost like they sort of lack of a vocabulary maybe, or
yeah
that, or I would say like in the larger, like growing up with like game reviews and stuff, the the idea that like graphics and audio and all of these things were kind of separated into their own sort of categories, and it's like nothing was really viewed holistically.
yes
It's reviewed in the same way that you'd review like a dishwasher or something. It's like,
exactly
did it clean the plates? Okay, but did it make a lot of noise? Like it's reviewed in that sort of way.
yeah
And
and no other
yeah,
imagine like, oh, I'm gonna check out this review for a rock album and it's separated by guitar, drums, vocalist.
and also like the quality of like the disc.
Yes,
Like
right.
like
How well is
oh
the disc made? What are the special features? It's a
yeah.
like I said, it's a very consumer reports approach to reviews, uh, rather than what you think of as like a traditional artistic criticism, uh, which they never quite. I think they've never quite escaped fully.
Because also when you are asking like $60 for something like that is you do want I guess a little bit of consumer reportsiness like
Right.
if I put in GTA 12 and it doesn't run and I spend $120 on it like that's I guess I'm gonna write an angry thing
Yeah.
but like yeah it's just but we don't have necessarily the vocabulary for things that aren't going for that
Right. The things
um
that are like cheaper or free, and
yeah
like are clearly going to work.
yeah
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, maybe to wrap things up a little bit, and maybe it's like just a very naive sort of way of thinking about it, but uh, the fact that a piece of software like this machine can like execute like instructions and then like create this like fragment of a place that can like sit in your brain as like a memory like next to like an actual like place that you've been and visited,
Yeah.
that's just like magical to me, and that's kind of what my priorities or interests in this medium are.
Yeah, because
Is,
we can you can become intimate with like a digital space in the same way in the same way you are familiar with a neighborhood in real life, you know. It is this.
yeah, and that's just so powerful and magical to me, and the it's not like video games are like more than a painting or more than, but the fact that you can incorporate also all of these other elements into it
Yeah.
and kind of saturate them into that space and that experience and that kind of exists in an almost like dreamlike simultaneity for people. Yeah, I don't know. That's
Yeah.
in
No.
spite of all of that, that's
it
really like the beauty of it for me. It feels like such a unexplored territory largely, even though
yeah.
there's so much that's been made. It's still very exciting.
Yeah, yeah, there it has infinite like potential still, and like I wonder how much of it, like I think about like is it, or like how much like of the exploration that's been done just does not get recognized, you know, is how I think about it
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah, that's also the depressing thing about like I guess the stuff that more we started from like in terms of like discoverability and all like
Yeah.
the infrastructure problems and community and stuff like that. It's like,
Like
I mean, even I'm sure I'll like reach a point where it's like, well, does this I only have finite time in my life to like make things. So it's like,
yes.
do I keep doing this or do I do something else? It's like yeah, um
Right, it's the it's the question I run up to often a lot of like how long can you do something when it like often feels like it doesn't do anything, you know. Or like you doing it kind of just for yourself and maybe a couple other people sometimes. But that's
but
like
the
the
thing is,
yeah.
I mean, the cool but unhelpful thing about art is that it exists not just right now, but in time,
Yes.
you know? So like
Right. No,
there's a
I
lot
joke sometimes of like, oh yeah, no, this is a great game. You're going to be loved, you know, in 20 years.
ex- exactly. And I mean, or at least somebody stumbles upon you and it upon a thing
Yeah.
in another time and it like ignites something or you see this spark of like this other consciousness that you relate to so profoundly and it's like well this guy died in 1805.
Yes.
It's like holy shit, like he was like he got it.
Yeah.
You know that
It's
that
this
guy knew what.
misfortune that we tie our success to how much money it makes, you know.
Yeah, well you gotta live.
And the idea that like art to be good has to reach more than one person when maybe it is this piece of art is actually just a conversation between these two people who will never meet each other.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the power of it.
Yeah.
Is that it is like non-linear in that way, or allows communication in a way that just isn't possible in any other way.
Right,
And it's
right.
also deeper, well, not deeper, but like the way that the things that a painting says or the things that a game can say are different than the things that a novel can say
Right.
or a film can say or whatever. I think a lot of people don't really. I think they feel it, but maybe that's not at the forefront of um, I don't know when they're thinking about things.
Yeah. Like because it's also very hard to describe what the difference in feeling is, you know, without
Yeah,
telling someone what the difference in feeling is. It's like, oh, or sometimes you yourself cannot describe what the difference is, but you know it in your bones. Uh,
It's like beyond language,
right,
which
right.
is the thing
Like,
to like.
but
Yeah,
when I do think about art conceptually, like if I top level, I'm like, sure, everything's art. I don't care. But if I want to talk about art with like a capital A,
yeah,
I think about it in terms of how humans talk to each other in ways that isn't language, and how we can convey ideas that sometimes we don't even know that we're conveying.
yeah.
Uh, and like someone can make something and two people can understand it, and the person made it could never explain, and the person experiencing could also never explain it, but they both somehow within our brains understand what the connection is.
Yeah, it's experiencing subjectivity, and
Yeah,
that's the kind of thing, again, that in my little experiences and other people's, that's what's so exciting. It's like you get to, it's like tune into these like subjective, TV channels. You get to just kind of wander into somebody's brain and like poke around in real time in this thing that's being drawn in front of you like
yeah,
hundreds of times per second. And it's like this machine that exists and sustains itself in a way that other art doesn't, which I think is really cool. Like you don't, I guess there are paintings that you like turn them on and they're like backlit or whatever, but the
yeah,
fact that it's like this machine that's like projecting a reality,
yeah. We
and
those exist in smaller scales, and like there, and even then they get lumped into some maybe even like different categorizations. But speaking
yeah.
of categorizations, Jacob, I've got a couple of questions for you as we wrap up this segment.
Mhm.
First up, hey, what's your favorite type of rock?
Oh, like as in like igneous and all of those.
Entirely up to you to interpret the question how you choose.
Okay. I mean, big fan of volcanic rock, right? That's like the first kind that we get, and it's
Yeah,
like porous in all kinds of ways, and it's like, depending on where it happens, it like makes all these weird organic shapes. It kind of seems like alive in a weird way.
yes,
So I'm
yeah, yeah,
into
no,
that.
like because we can see its formation, like its birth, so to speak, is so present to when we saw it, uh,
Hmm.
and lava moves, and hey, living things move, all but also lava. Speaking of,
Well, I
yeah,
mean, all rock actually like moves. It just moves a lot
right,
slower. It's on a geologic time scale. Actually, everything is
just
sort of moving.
imperceptibly to us. It's not just like
Yeah,
walking down the street, you know.
yeah. Like mountains are just flowing. They're just, going pretty slow.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, I've spent a lot of time thinking about rocks as an environment artist. So, yeah.
perfect. That is like and second question, optionally answered. Do you have a favorite Toho character?
Uh, you know, can I look up a list?
You don't need to,
Yeah.
because you don't even need to have one. If you're looking at a list, you're like, oh, maybe I don't have one,
I guess I don't have one.
which
I,
is
I feel like
perfectly acceptable as an answer.
okay, okay. I don't know if I should feel bad about that, but
No, you don't need to feel bad about that. It's a great opportunity to be like, oh, what is this weird little thing? This long-running Dojin series of games.
yeah, I guess I should. Do you have a recommendation for like a starting
I don't.
experience?
I mean, sometimes the
Okay.
starting point is like a fan game, if depending on your appetite for bullet hells. Uh,
I'm so bad at video games, is the problem.
that there's probably some. I mean, we do not have time to unpack the idea of being bad at video games, because I think we only view that on one lens, which is mechanical. Engaging with mechanics, not engaging with the themes, which plenty of people are also can be good at one and very bad at the other.
Sure, sure.
Uh,
Okay, well, we can leave it there then. But
yes.
yeah,
But Jacob, thanks for joining me here today.
sure. Yeah, thanks
Going
for
to,
talking to me. It's fun.
I'd love to. We're going to go on a break and be back in about 2 minutes and 9 seconds, give or take. I'll be back. Say Sumi's cover of "Honk If You're Lonely," which is my kind of jam. Was starting to get warm again. We've got a guest coming on who is going to take a second to get in, so I'm just going to continue to talk about the project. Oh, I mentioned I'm not going to be here the next couple of weeks because, of course, I am be traveling. If you are in the New England area, I'm going to be over at the Lunar Moth Zine Fest in somewhere in New Hampshire. Man something or other? Manchester? Is that a place in New Hampshire? It's somewhere in New Hampshire. Look it up. You can find it. Next week, and then the following week, I will be at the local Clark Game Expo over at Clark in like Worcester. And then I'm traveling around. I've got other places to go. I've got like how can I? No, it is not there yet. I will be traveling to New York a couple times. New York actually like 3 times, but like once in the city, a couple times upstate, and then out and about. Okay, hello. Our guest is here. Our guest who you may know from issue 70. Is it? Wait, now I'm confused. It is. Was it 74 or is it 73?
I think it was 7. I actually can't remember. 74 sounds more familiar.
That's what threw me because of your page is 70. I'm like, oh, was I wrong? No,
No,
I wasn't. You're right. I was wrong. It was 73.
Oh, okay.
You were the correct one. I think it was because I got thrown off and I forgot to mention, hey, you can just put your thing out now. But the thing that you just put out is Christine Me with Transmutation. Hello.
Hello.
So a variation of the stock. Hey, how'd you find Indiepocalypse question? Given that you were a commissioned game developer, the variation of course. Hey, did you know what this thing was? When I was like, hey, can you make a game for it?
Yes, I had definitely heard of it. Sort of about Jacob, who talked about it previously. Like I'd seen it in and around the space of itch. And my peers had talked about it before. In fact, I think 1 or 2 of my friends may have contributed to it in the past. So I was familiar with it, but I didn't really understand how it all worked.
Right.
So, up until I contributed.
Right. The logistics of the whole system of it all. That is.
Yes, exactly.
I've increasingly find that is my experience of like, I guess just if you do it long enough, and if you're a game developer who doesn't work in 100% isolation, chances are the web will reach you in some way or another. Of you're like, oh yeah, I know someone who was in, especially people within like the New York scene, which is sometimes like a straight pipeline to Indiepocalypse.
Do you need to?
Oh, you're cutting out a lot. I can't really hear you.
Do you live in New York as well?
Oh no, I heard you very quickly.
Let me. Okay, I'm gonna move around and try to find better service.
Okay.
Can you hear me from here?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I was just asking if you also live in New York.
I don't know. I live in Massachusetts, which is in the scale of the U.S. is basically New York. You know.
Yeah, I used to live in Massachusetts too. I lived in Cambridge for about 1.5 years during COVID.
I visit Cambridge, every few months for local game dev stuff, but I live further from Cambridge.
Yeah.
But hey, I don't know what subject we're talking about. Indie games. Yes, this is about indie games for people who are
indie games. Here.
Yes. Ostensibly about indie games, perhaps, maybe. This is ostensibly game related, perhaps. But speaking of that, to stay on the subject of games, maybe. Hey, Christine, what's transmutation? If people don't know what that thing is.
Yeah, so transmutation is sort of I call it an exercise in divination magic.
Yes.
So it's sort of it's based on the 5 elements of Chinese philosophy, which are a little different from the 4 elements I think you may be familiar with in the West, like earth, wind, water, fire.
Right.
Instead, it's earth, metal, fire, water, and wood. So those are the 5 elements. And Chinese philosophy, sort of spiritual imbalances, inward or outward in your relationships with other people, are sort of it can stem from imbalances in your elements. So it's sort of like, if you have too much wood in you, you may act a certain way. If you have too much fire in you,
Yeah.
it'll sort of result, like these are the things that may happen to you. So I drafted these sort of like little love stories that are modular and mixed together with each other. And the sort of outcome of the story or the narrative you end up making has to do with how much of each element you decide to infuse into that particular relationship story. So it's sort of loosely grouped into who, what, where, and why. And it's sort of an arc of who this person was to you, like a memory, um, on a certain day. Why did this relationship end? And so you're sort of like divining these little love stories
Yeah.
by adding elements to it, and it's sort of like a little bit of like a elemental magic / interactive fiction piece.
Yes. Yeah.
And yeah.
No, that is like the core of like how do you describe this we talked about this in this first segment. I talk about constantly on this show of like if if you boil it down to the do of it all, it's like an interactive fiction piece. But that the scope of it, what like like your full description of everything would not describe every single piece of interactive fiction. It's like you drill down like the distinctness of it, and like bringing in like the function of art of hey, look, this is the things that I want to talk about, or
Yeah, totally. I think with a lot of interactive fiction, in my mind at least, they're always sort of associated with like puzzle games or like sort of like adventure-y puzzle games,
yeah,
detective games, that kind of thing. And there's always kind of like a right answer and some like logic deducing. And I think in this one, it's a lot more sort of loose than that, right? You're not trying to get at a specific outcome,
right,
unless you are. I don't know.
yes,
Maybe you're like, I want to like make this relationship do a certain thing,
yeah, maybe
and then I
you
think,
see it enough times that you're like you start to like, oh, I'm going to recognize the patterns, and
yeah.
I'm going to divine the routes that I want to divine.
It's kind of funny to think of it also in terms of like builds, like your sort
Right.
of classic video game canon of like, oh, I'm building, and it's like, oh yeah, I guess you could spec full into and wood element relationship here, right?
Yes, right.
Like, or I don't know, or you can be like, I'm doing a 5-color build, kind of like Magic decks.
Yeah,
I don't
right.
know.
I'm strictly I'm strictly a divinator. Found it. I lost it and I found it. But yeah, it is like, and I think we talked about this in the first segment, and I think games are increasingly running up against this idea of games you don't win.
Yeah, yeah.
And as the language around them like increasingly like evolves, and like finding like, well, how do we talk about these games? Where do we put these games that don't, you're not gonna drop a cool $1 million to put your games on like the Game Awards,
Right, right. Yeah, no, it's interesting because I feel like there's so much discussion around how like the core of what a video game is like you make decisions that matter.
Yes.
I don't necessarily agree with the sentiment, right? But this
No.
is sort of how a lot of
Yeah, yeah.
people think about them. And then you have this whole sort of swath of games where it's like, no, your decisions don't impact the game. And like, what are you going to do about that? Do you still consider it a game, a playful experience, right?
Right,
Like,
right.
yeah.
Or sometimes the idea that like, oh look, you don't make a decision is the decision, and but it's still very focused on the idea that like, player decision is the central focal point of games.
Mm-hmm.
When
Yeah. Oh yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
no. You can. If I remember talking, just go right through me.
No, I just think of like there's like a tag, I think.
Yeah.
When you search for games on Steam and itch and stuff, and it's like a choices matter game.
Right.
That's like a whole sort of genre of game. And to me, that's kind of funny because then it's like, oh, so other like, what does it mean to not have that tag? Like, I don't know.
Right.
It's sort of specific to like visual novels, it seems.
Yes.
But can you imagine if like, I don't know, like Dark Souls 3 had to have a tag that was like, this is a choices matters game.
Right.
Or like, right.
Because like when we drill it down to it, like the choices that result in a bad end in a visual novel are like functionally the same as the choice in Mario to not jump over that little Goomba guy.
Yeah.
But do we call Mario choices matter? Or do we call running into the Goomba a bad end? You know.
It's kind of funny. I think that's some territory to explore.
Right.
in the indie game space.
Yeah, we like it, when like our like the fact that choices require like this, it's the mechanical component that gets into all of this trickiness of like, and you know, to bring it up to what I was alluding to with talking to Jacob towards the end of the idea of, you know, you're someone who makes a lot of games that are very easily, let's say, beatable, quote unquote, with like, you know, gamers can beat these games, you know, and so do like most of the contributors to Indiepocalypse make games that are extremely easily beatable, but doesn't mean they understood anything that happened during it or after it.
Right. Yeah. Like you were talking about how like being quote unquote like good at video games is typically a mechanical like distinction, right? And not like a thematic one or a narrative one. Yeah. And that's really interesting because yeah, it's almost a question of like media literacy, right? Like if you play all of Papers, Please or like Disco Elysium and your takeaway from it is like, I should love late stage capitalism.
Right.
I would argue that maybe you're bad at games.
Right. or you went through and like, I got the best ending and you took nothing away from it.
Hey, it's like, well, I guess you clicked the button at the right time for in game, but like, can you really say you're good at video games if you sort of like didn't understand it? I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. It's a thing that like the difficult, because it has the same difficulty that most other art does, which is how do we understand it, which is also, don't tell gamers, but it's often an unsolvable problem, you know.
Yeah,
it's very possible for you to engage with a piece of art and spend your entire life unpacking it and never feel like you understood it, but it's still like,
it's true.
Sticks with you.
The same even goes, I think, from the designer perspective.
Yeah.
So I just watched a lecture with Bennett Foddy. He's the guy who made Co-op and Baby Steps, and like, I don't know. I'm most known for Co-op, but also for Getting Over It.
Yes, the subgenre of people moving awkwardly.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because he was saying in his lecture that like he didn't really understand what kind of games he made until somebody else kind of explained it to him. Like a critic interpreted and analyzed Bennett's games, and then Bennett was able to see it from the lens of like, oh yeah, actually, this is what I'm doing.
Right.
These are the things that I'm experimenting with, but he couldn't necessarily articulate them to himself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes, you know, people are just like making something, you know.
Yeah.
No matter what.
And they're just like making something that feels good or interesting to them.
Yeah.
And maybe sometimes it's like carefully thought through and constructed and as like a specific kind of experiment. But I think, at least for me personally, I know it's a lot more vibes based.
Yes. Yeah, like a lot of, you know, people are obviously driving from like, you know, individual experiences, but a lot of times that's not the most conscious thing you're thinking about. You know, you're not like, well, I know like this Chinese elemental system. How am I gonna make a game that is like, like you're not just like, you know, compiling all of your knowledge and experiences and plucking them to say these ones are going to be a video game this time.
Yeah, exactly. And for me personally, I also whenever I make a new thing, I'm not a super technical person. So I didn't come from like a strong programming background per se. And so I always also try to use it as an excuse to like learn something I'm not familiar with.
Yeah.
So in the case of transmutation, I had been using Ink for a while. So Ink is from Inkle Studios. It's like this narrative scripting language that's good for like dialogue and anything that's sort of like text heavy. But there's a lot to learn within that syntax itself, and I wanted to essentially also use it as an exercise in like figuring out specific technical limitations and like setting variables within Ink and having that sort of like talk to Unity and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I think that there's just a lot of different drives or impulses that can go into making a game, and there's also a lot of like sort of constraints and
Yes.
affordances, and there might be like you might be like, oh, why did the auteur of this game decide to do this? And the answer might just be like they didn't know how to do the other thing that they wanted to do,
Right.
right? And like this is what they were able to come up with.
They're working around their limitations, and like
Yeah,
that. I mean, that happens in every medium. Of like, we don't have, films don't have infinite budgets and infinite time to like make something. So then he's like, well, what can we make within the time frame we have to work with, and
yeah.
so many things are making like, if you're gonna make music, like, well, I have every instrument and I also know how to play every instrument.
Yeah, in a way, I think these constraints are actually like very sort of like can be very creative,
Yeah.
right? Like it's like a space to I don't know, like it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think a lot of people go into like a technical discipline and they're like, I have to know how to do everything all the time. And I mean, like QWOP, for example, and referring back to this lecture by Bennett Foddy,
Yeah.
What why QWOP is the way it was just because he was bad at programming,
Right.
and he couldn't figure out how to make the game he actually wanted to make. But within those constraints was something like very fruitful and like really interesting. And so I'm sort of a fan of mining these like things that are afforded to you, even if they're like quite small or limited in nature.
Absolutely. And like the kind of rise of simpler engines that, like, if you don't come from a big software programming background, but you can just like get started in and make something. I think also like, it's like, oh, well, I can still make something even if I'm not a programmer,
Actually, that's how I made my first ever game. It was with Bitsy,
Yes.
which is like this tiny little tool, right? And like there's a lot of really interesting small tools out there that aren't even necessarily designed for like a video game experience, but can be turned into one. So there's one that I recently learned about that I'm a big fan of called Decker.
Yes.
Yeah. And now I'm like, well, I want to make a game with that. Like, and you don't really have to code much.
No. And Decker is cool in that you can like import other people's like Decker files pretty easily. And like, well, how do they do it?
Yeah, no, totally. But I think there's something very empowering about making like something small and within your abilities.
Yes.
Just to sort of get you inspired to keep making work, right? Like where you, at least for me, like where I feel a sense of paralysis is when I'm just like, I'm like, I have to do the big thing. I have to like make my magnum opus. It's like, no, it's okay. You can just make crappy little prototypes and they don't have to like be anything.
Right.
And no one even has to see them, but like it gets you in that space of making things. Right?
Yes, yeah. Video game needs to get better at adopting like jamming or like sketching. Not like jamming in video game jams have ruined the idea of jamming in games, which is to like just like make something that's maybe bad that maybe no one ever sees, but like you learn something from it,
Yeah,
like,
totally.
It's the idea of too much polish, like you stress yourself out, and because it also like it gets you too narrowly focused on making one project when you could have made 30 other half finished incomplete games that explored 30 different ideas, but you're like, I got to make a game, I got to make a finished project or whatever.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, at least especially like early on, in, I think, your game dev career. I just feel like it's really nice to not have those expectations for yourself and just be able to make small things that don't have to work.
Right. Yes. Just kind of just make something.
Yeah,
Uh,
anything.
that is like there some. It's there's. I'm sure there's tons of people who have studio names and logos and never finish a game. Because they get.
Yeah, no, totally. I think like yeah, it's really exciting to kind of get swept into all of that. But yeah, I don't know.
You need to actually make something.
Yeah.
But Christine, believe it or not, we are approaching the end of our time here. But I have a couple questions for you that you've had a little bit of time to prepare for. Hey, what's your favorite type of rock?
Okay. I really like quartz, I guess, because it's really beautiful, but it's also like one of the most common minerals in the world. And I guess it counts as a rock. It's a rock.
I believe
right?
so. I mean, so far as
Yeah.
I care, I'm not going to be too picky about it.
Yeah, it's cool. I don't know. I like, and it's everywhere. And they come in different colors. It's like the people's rock.
Yes. The idea that any rocks, these things are just lying around. The idea that any of them wouldn't be the people's rocks. Truly.
Yeah. Well, I think it's really funny. Sometimes you'll like go somewhere and they'll be like, "This rock is like X billion years old," and I'm
Yeah.
like, "Well, in a way, aren't all of them in some form the same age?"
Right.
I guess they could have been made later, but they were like in the specific elements
Yeah.
from the beginning of time. I don't know.
I guess like maybe if they came from space or whatever, they're like, oh, these are slightly
yeah.
newer. These are, I mean, they're still really old, but they're just like,
Yeah,
but in terms of their tenure here on Earth, they're a little bit newer, maybe.
maybe.
Who knows? Rocks. What a weird things. And second question, hey, do you have a favorite Toho character?
Reimu,
Perfect.
I think. Yeah,
That is one.
because there's one. I only know two. I know Reimu and Marissa.
Okay.
And I like Reimu's outfit because it's like it's red and it's like a shrine.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is. I mean, that is the big strength. I think of the main big strength of Toho is they all look nice, or they all like have like good identifiable designs. Like it's Shrine Maiden, but a little bit different,
Yeah.
that it's like more makes them more recognizable. It's what draws people to it. Plus, also, I guess like culture draws people to it just by that beautiful circularness of culture of like things draw more people because it has people. So then it draws more people.
Yeah. Well, it's funny to me that like Toho is still out in the zeitgeist because I remember it having like a big moment when I was like in high school,
Right.
which was like a really long time ago now.
Well, you know what? Someone else is in high school having that same moment.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe in another like 20 years, Toho will be back again in a big way. I don't know.
Right. It's a weird thing that's never really like hit in terms of like mainstream U.S. like games culture. Like it feels kind of like its own little splinter of everything.
I think that now the only playable Switch game for Toho is a fan game.
Yeah,
we've sort of reached that point. Yeah.
That is most often the case, I think. And then there's also like, because I think we were like there are more identifiable like splinters coming up. I think visual novels and IF kind of feel like they also exist kind of separate from games.
Yeah.
Like by and large, but to end with another too long conversation to start with in a segment. Christine, thanks for joining me here today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Glad to have you. We will be back in the other half of, or the other side of rather, of another 2 minute 9 seconds, as it turns out. All right. See you all for now. To do it twice, but respect the length of the title. We are with our next guest, Also from this most recent Indiepocalypse, which is to say Indiepocalypse 75 with Tube Noodles, is Nat Martinez. Nat, how are you doing today?
Hello, I'm doing okay. It's Saturday, so that's good.
Yes, no, Saturdays for hanging out and not working. The most important thing to use a day of the week for.
Yeah, that is. And also going on Indiepocalypse Radio.
Yes, yes, a nice casual way to be like, hey, let me just. There are other game developers in the world. Hey, let me talk to them. Uh, now I have a question for you. Question right up at the top. Hey, how did you find Indiepocalypse?
That's a good question. You asked the other people that, and I was asking myself, how did I come across the magazine? I don't remember. I've been following for such a long time. It just became like, oh, Indiepocalypse is out. Let me check it out.
Oh,
I
okay.
actually don't remember. I think each recommended it to me.
Yeah, like it. I'm fortunate that they'll often put it on the front page, and which often throws into people's recommendation feeds if you're like downloading something. So that kind of like attrition of people just seeing it enough times and being like, oh, okay, what is this thing actually?
Yeah, I thought the cover was cool. That's enough
Yes,
sometimes.
that is my hope. Is just to pay people to make very cool covers, so that people go, hey, what is this thing? It's got a very cool cover. Uh,
Yeah, and I didn't know. I was following for a long time and I was thinking, oh, someday I'm gonna make a game that's gonna be really cool and I'm gonna submit it to the magazine. But then I stopped making games for a long while and then I thought, oh, I mean, I have
yeah.
free games. Let me try.
Little did you
Let
know
me
you already
submit.
made one.
Yeah, I did. I forgot about that.
The trick, the thing that people often forget of being like, oh, I got to make a game for it. They always forget they already have a game they already made for it. That's probably something to get in there.
Yeah, and it's funny because you say it on the submit for you don't have to make a game for this, but people somehow feel like they have to make a game, and
Right.
I'm one of those people.
I know. I think that is that kind of like maybe part of it's just like the culture of how many game jams there are and like so many when I've submitted to like different or when I open up like submission pages for like gaming events or whatever, they're always like, make sure your game is unreleased or like released within the last 3 months or something. Like there's an emphasis on games being new.
Yes, and I think it's funny because we always have this idea of making the next best thing that you can make,
Right.
right? I think I wrote about this on my magazine page that I didn't really think that the game was good enough to show off. But then I thought, I'm never gonna submit anything if I don't do it now.
Right, and that's like, and the people who I found in the experience of doing this are the people who are like the most unsure about whether their game will be in there. Are usually the people who are just like right in the strike zone of like, yeah, no, you wouldn't even you're submitting a game that wouldn't have you wouldn't have the chance of being waitlisted. It's like a hard sell unless you had an extremely competitive month. But so we're talking about this game, but if people have not played it, if they're unfamiliar, how would you describe Tube Noodles?
Mm, I think I've heard people describe it as a walking simulator, but then I think it's a little like what you were talking about on the last interview that maybe you're not, I mean, you're not walking outside. You're walking inside a game
Yeah,
that was made for this purpose. It's a whole world that someone built from scratch, and you're walking inside. And there's objectives too.
yeah, you gotta
Um,
get those noodles.
yes. Which flavor did you get?
I don't remember that you're asking me. This is about 3 months ago at this point, if
Oh,
not
that's okay.
longer. I do not remember, but that
It's
is
a
yeah.
it's a walking simulator, but there's a story. You're you bought some noodles that didn't sit quite right, and then you woke up the next day and your stomach is speaking to you and telling you to get more, or
Yes.
I mean just to eat something, eat anything. And you can walk around town, walk around the small map and look for things that you can eat. And some of them are good, some of them are not. And there's a few endings, different endings, and that's it.
But it's all ultimately, you're just hungry. You just have to get food. and it's,
Yes, just that. Without
and
going into spoiler
yes,
territory.
yes, yes. Uh, it exists within the my I have like a tablet I bring to events that I tag things, and it exists within the tag genre of RPG maker game, but also not an RPG.
Oh, yes, those are the best. I love RPG Maker because barely anyone makes RPGs in it
Yes.
anymore.
No, it's like, oh, here's a thing that I can make a character walk around, and it does all. It is a very good dialogue system, so that's what I need.
Yes, exactly. And I think if you're trying to get into games and you're not a programmer, like me, I'm not a programmer, um, you just need a framework it's already there and you can just create your little character,
Yeah.
your story. You made a game. If you just want to tell a story, which is what I always want to try to do, tell a story, it's good to have a thing that's already there and you just have to focus on what you want to tell.
Yeah. So, what got you into like deciding like, oh, hey, I want to make games? Uh, from like, because one could presume that you were doing art before you were making games. Uh,
Yes, I still am an animator.
yeah.
I actually do a lot of different stuff because um the art industry is not kind and
Yes.
you have
No.
to learn how to do as many things as you can so you never
Right.
go out of job.
You're right. You have to be able to
But
just kind of like wear 8,000 hats because you never know when someone's going to
yes,
need your particular hat.
exactly. I was an animator and I was in a project that was really tough on my mental health and the whole team as well. And I was feeling burnt out, and I had the feeling that I had, funny enough, I had the feeling that I didn't, wasn't cut out to make art at all, because if making art made me feel this bad, then it wasn't for me. But then I just had to stop, put work aside for a little bit, and just draw something for myself, write a little thing for myself.
Yeah.
And I thought, I mean, I've always wanted to make a game. Why not do this? And then I was also eating a lot of cup noodles,
Yes.
and and uh, from this came the story that the game was only going to be about I feel hungry and I need to go to the store to buy noodles, and tube noodles is the copyright free version of that.
Of
And
your own unique brand of cup of noodles.
exactly, and that's why they are tube shaped. But I think, and that was it. I just needed to stop and make something that wasn't for someone else, and that allowed me to breathe and think and find joy in making art again.
Yeah, because I think that's the problem you can run into even when like the modern internet problem of making art like for yourself. Sometimes even if you're working by yourself, when you are stuck like making something for the theoretical audience that you are thinking of, then you feel like you're like, oh, you just tricked yourself into working for a bunch of like a million terrible bosses all at once.
Exactly.
Uh,
Like what audience? What
right,
audience? You are the audience.
right. You
You're the one that's gonna have to play test your game over and over and over. At least make it enjoyable for yourself.
yeah, and I think often if you make it enjoyable for yourself, chances are at least one other person is going to find it enjoyable. Uh,
Yes.
it's like the core of. I think that's why a lot of stuff can kind of like in my experience, falls flat when it feels like it's being designed for a theoretical audience and ends up feeling like it's made for nobody.
Yeah, I think when I was still learning the ropes, I would look up these YouTube channels that are often targeted to people who are learning how to game dev, and they often focus a lot on what is going to give you an audience,
Right.
what's gonna make you money. And I think that's so sad. Like, why are you picking the genre of your game based on what people are playing? Like, and also, why are these channels telling people to do that? Like, I know everyone wants to make money. The industry is tough, but it's
But
your first game. Like, you're
yes.
not working with that yet.
Right, and especially
This is not your career. This is not your career yet.
right, and especially where you are getting burnt out by work doing industry work. The last thing you want to do is then you jump into more, industry mindset work of like
Yes.
oh well, I got burnt out on doing industry animation. Let me do that in games now, but for myself.
Yes, exactly. It's like you have to at least have 1 second of your week, I mean, to
Yeah.
do something that's not related to making money. But I think it's also related to how art isn't really valued like nowadays. It's
No. Yeah.
people always say, okay, you can make art, but you have to make money with it. You cannot just waste your time making art. And people don't talk about that with a lot of other things, like going to the gym is not about making money,
Right.
why should art be always about making money?
Right, because it's like we have to just like, oh, how you sell it, like what's your audience, or like, oh, how much did when I go to events, a question people often ask, like, well, how much money did you make? Did you do well? And doing well is like, how much stuff did I sell? Not like,
Yes.
oh, hey, did I have people come at like say that they came last year and they're very excited, that it's here again and they want to check out more stuff. The like the fact that I'm selling something for money feels incidental to the idea of that people are enjoying it. It's just
Yes,
like
exactly.
one of the weird, most measurable ways to go. Oh, well, theoretically, people are enjoying this because it makes the money dollar thing go up.
Yes, I sometimes I get like a comment or another that says that's really detailed, and the person says how they enjoyed the game and it made them feel better, and it makes it worth it, I mean, I'm not gonna be uh
Right.
I do want to I do want eventually to be able to live off of my own games, but
Right. You can't take a nice comic to
you
the store and buy groceries with it.
yeah, but it's also like two different kind of fuels. You
Yeah.
have the fuel of people enjoying the game and the fuel of money, which you cannot avoid.
Yeah, that's such. It is such a difficult problem to deal with. Of like that we need, because I don't think if we had if we were all given money, you know is that like we would just stop making art. We would all just like kind of lie around on our floor and
Of course.
not do anything.
Yeah, no, in fact, making art at that time that I was feeling really bad about myself was what gave me the fuel to be able to keep working on that project, which was really hard to make. And it's like you can't have one without the other. You have to at least invest in it, invest in your art, even if it doesn't really give you stuff right away
Right.
back.
Right. The kind of joke from the first segment of, maybe it'll be appreciated in 20 years,
Yes.
but as long as you appreciate it now, uh and that's like the misfortune of art of how much of it needs to be like, you need at least 10,000 people to enjoy it in order for you to make money, like survive financially off of it, I guess. Not even like
Yeah.
really like it, but like it enough to pay money for it. Like how many, like if you think of like a lot of like the major like blockbuster AAA projects, how many people like really like those things, you know?
Yeah. How many people remember them later?
Right, that's it's like a very common, like I think it's a very repeatable practice of to look of like top selling things and then compare them to, you know, critic lists, decades down the road, and how often those two things don't overlap with each other, or how often like top grossing things these people do not think about ever again.
Yeah, and I think it's weird because we're talking about being your own audience and making things for yourself, but I admit it's difficult for me to even show off the things that I make, which is why I it took a long time for me to stop and think, okay, let's submit Tube Noodles to the magazine
Right,
because you
because
make the thing for yourself, but you're kind of ashamed. You're kind of no, wait, I'm gonna let me let me wait a little bit. Let me
right,
make
because
something just a
you
little
never
bit.
know if like, oh, I feel good about it, but what if I submit it and then I never hear back, you know?
Yeah, but yeah, it's I'm trying to market my games a little bit more. I'm working on my next one, and it's really it's difficult. We never want to be the marketing people.
Yes, no, I
Wait,
I barely want. I ostensibly like the marketing people for all these. I try to be the marketing people for you, and I also barely want to do it. Uh,
yeah, we kind of just wanna let me just put this online and people will magically find it, but they
yes,
don't because there's a billion people doing the same thing.
right. And I'm like, it's a collection of 10 good games. Why do I need to? Why do I need to convince you to
What else
try
do you
it?
need?
Yeah, I'm like what? I did all the work for you. They're good. Just play it. You don't need me to fucking wrap it inside of a SpongeBob meme or whatever for you to go. Ooh, I care about it now.
SpongeBob me. Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. You have to, okay, you made the game for yourself. You need to believe in it. You have to show other people, hey, I think this is good, which is difficult, but
Yes,
we keep
that's
we keep on
that.
keeping on.
But the trick is then hopefully one of those people that you show that that they think it's good, they will then show someone else who then also thinks it's good, and then it kind of that the beautiful word of mouth of everything,
Yeah.
because that is the the hardest part of like, well, how do you keep things going and how do you keep people like caring about things?
Yeah, it's weird. This question by itself, how do you make people care about things? It feels kind of depressing, doesn't
Right.
it?
that you
But
that you have to put in
but
the work for people to care about things.
yeah, that's that's the struggle.
Yeah, I keep because I strive to be someone who looks to find new things rather than someone who's waiting to be sold on things. I think more people. I think it's just like a good attitude to have, to be like, oh, you should be looking for more things rather than waiting for someone to be like. The an exhausting feeling is like when I'm doing an event and someone's like, "Hey, pitch me on your thing," and I'm like, "Man, shut up." No. Like you're here, care about being interested, like bring your own interest to it. Like don't be like, "Hey, so what's your thing?" And I go,
Oh my God, pitching is such a terrible thing.
"Yes,
It's
it's
like, and you say, oh, but I do think people should look for different things, especially in games. I
yeah,
I don't remember which interview you guys talked about this one, but I think people are way too used to AAA games just showing up in their feed,
yes,
and they complain about a lot about the game industry. I remember last year people were saying, "Oh, no good games came out. Gaming is dead now." But they never open up itch and look up at the hundreds and thousands of free-to-play games that you can find, and people it's literally right there. You just have to open a new website. You just have to close Steam for a little bit.
Right,
Close
right.
Steam.
Just right, and there's just like infinite stuff, and I've even there's even someone like me who's doing the work. If you're like, oh, but there's too many games on itch, I'm like, hey, I solved that problem for
That's
you.
good.
I'm
That's
like,
a good thing.
yeah, right. The idea that there's like I mean, the name Indiepocalypse, it's borrowed from the idea of the absurdity of that there can be such thing as too much art, like
That's awesome.
I mean, think about it. Like, how is there like, oh hey, you go, I love books. Well, here's 10,000 books. Like, oh, I never have to run out of books. I'm good.
Yes, I think people really want the game to. I think maybe it's like I want to know if people like this game. I want this game to be validated to know if
Right.
I can waste my time with it. People don't want to, and I think I fall on this a lot. Sometimes I find a post on social media and it doesn't have a lot of likes, and I think, is this really good?
Yes.
you
Right.
know
Right. We need like this kind of like mass validation in order for something to be like, oh yeah. So I mean, if this is really good, 10,000 people would have liked it, but only
yes,
seven
and
did.
like time is really limited. The same At the same time, we need to, you know quotation, waste time making the games that we like, and people need to waste time trying out these games, the new games that they would have never found if they didn't, try it, even if it doesn't have a lot of likes and comments.
Yeah. Yeah. There's
It's about time.
I people have submitted games that like I've been taken aback by, like, oh, how good these games are, and they have like that person has like no social media accounts at all. They have like no comments, no nothing on the thing, but like, oh, this game's very good, and it's like, how would people find this? Like, how would
Yeah, and I think it's a lot of game devs and artists in general complain about having to use social media, and I totally get it. But I would really like to connect with more game devs, and some of
yes,
them don't. I don't. How do I talk to you? How do I
right,
find you?
yeah. That like I'm very much like, for me, social media is really good for meeting people, and then, well, I mean, I invented this crazy show so that I can then talk to people, but I don't. That is hard for everyone to do, but it's a great place to meet people, and then uh, for people to then like uh, you know find a different channel to then hang out and like get to know someone, and
Yeah, that's
to,
great.
to like form these communities, where you can. We are, and but did I was like, I don't have a segue from that sentence to what I need to ask you, which is, now, what's your favorite type of
That's
rock?
okay. I was also thinking about that really hard
Okay.
because you asked me two
Yes.
people. I have no idea. I do not know. I'm a crystal person. I have a lot of crystals around here. Does that count?
I think so. I think so. I'm not. There was a time where I looked up and I've forgotten, and I'm not picky about the logistics of, do crystal, like, what are crystals rocks, are rocks crystals? I don't know. Nor do I.
Sure.
Nor
They're
do I care too
related.
much. I'm just
Yeah, the crystals on my desk
perfect.
specifically.
And do you have a favorite Toho character?
That I do not have. I also looked that up and I do not have one.
Perfectly
So
allowed.
sorry.
Thank you. So that said, hey, thanks for joining me. As soon as I find, there you are, OBS. We're gonna go
Thank you
on
for having me.
the last break of the show, and we'll be back in about a minute 52. Uh, Goodbye for now. was the Replacements. I Hate Music. We are here with the whole crew. Hello, entire crew. How are you all doing today? I still.
Hello again.
Hello again. Well, so soon.
Hi.
We've got. I do need. There was a question during the break, like other questions for this segment. And occasionally you think of. I should have questions, but I am. I don't want to turn the show into too much work, which means like having segments, and also I don't listen to video game things, so I don't know what video game people talk about for segments. Do they talk about games you're playing? You know what I like to ask on the show on occasion is. There's a little guy. He runs around. He's got suspenders, kind of thing. He's got overalls. He was just starring in a movie, and I gotta wonder, what is everyone's here relationship to Mario?
I used to play Mario as a kid and I never did again.
He is a memory of the distant past.
He is Super Mario World specifically. I didn't watch the movie either.
That's fine. I,
I have,
I do not either, and will not in my lifetime.
it's a little weird, but I'm open to different opinions.
Yeah, I'm a 3D Mario person. Well, not I wouldn't even say I'm like a Mario. I was never like a Nintendo person, but I have like GameCube Mario memories. I guess
Yes.
the one people don't like Sunshine. I think the vibes in that are pretty immaculate. So I'm a big fan of Sunshine, just the world, maybe excluding Mario. Maybe it's like the worst part about that game. Um,
He is
and I also
he is weird aesthetically in that.
he is. He's like maybe slightly off model like Beach Mario, which I don't know, maybe I like it now that I mentioned it. And then the other thing I like is the fact that there's like 10 polygons in the entirety of Mario 64 and just like one texture. And it's just like a world. I love that like hyper smeary Mario 64 aesthetic, even though I was never really engaged in that when it came out. But looking back, I think it's a really ugly game, but like beautiful in its ugliness. So
Yes, Brian Eno would be proud.
exactly
Just like,
the constraints of the medium. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's true. Like that is like also like the return to kind of like low poly aesthetics is also it's easier to do as an individual. So it's like
Yeah.
it's more attainable for like a modern like developer to be like, oh yeah, I can just make like like okay, here we go. It's got six sides to it. Whatever. Here's a polygon. Here's a 3D model.
I do sort of think like low poly is kind of like the architectural brutalism of like game aesthetics, because like you see like the literally like the pieces that like make up the sort of the structure of the world. Like you can see like, oh, that building is like five real polygons, and there's a
Right.
really sharp, like I can cut my eyeball on the intersection between them. I don't know, I think there's something kind of like honest and beautiful about low poly in that way. It's convenient that it's easy to make as well, but I
Yeah.
do think there's something. I don't know. I like being able to see the seams. It's almost like seeing the brushstrokes in a painting, being able to like see the see the polygons. I
Yeah,
don't know.
it's like a weird thing where it's like at the time like these were the nicest polygons we could make, and now it's looped around to where it's become an aesthetic decision. Like it is now like what was once reality is now abstracted as like an art style.
Yeah, with like synthesizers or whatever. Like we don't need synthesizers can sound pretty darn good these days if we want them to, but we can still do bleeps and loops if we
Right.
it becomes an aesthetic choice rather than yeah.
Right. It's something that evokes the feeling of a trumpet, even if it doesn't quite sound like it.
Or even like people that have like memories of like a terrible trumpet MIDI that they heard when they were like 16,
Yeah.
trying to like reproduce the the aesthetic experience of MIDI trumpet number 7, and like that becomes an aesthetic. And I think the same sort of thing happens in games too. It's like your memory of Mario 64, um, even if what you're actually making is maybe even more like ambitious or technically complicated, you're still kind of uh, trying to reproduce that soup that you had.
Right. And that is, the beauty of like, art in conversation with like, being artists being in conversation with art rather than simply trying to like replicate it.
Yeah.
Christine, do you and this guy, you guys talk at all? You know each other?
Me and Mario.
Yeah, you and Mario.
So embarrassingly, I like didn't really play much Mario as a kid. I had a friend who had an NES, and that was sort of like my only exposure besides playing Super Smash
Yeah.
and Mario Party. But in adulthood, I have learned to appreciate. Well, I loved Luigi's Mansion, like the most recent
Okay.
one. And then I did play the most recent Mario. What was it? Super Galaxy Odyssey or whatever.
The one where he's like a little elephant guy.
The one where he's like in space.
Okay,
And it's
yes.
like a 3D. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
that one.
So I kind of like don't have a ton of Mario nostalgia. Like it wasn't super formative for me as a child. The games I mostly played as a kid were Pokemon and like browser-based virtual pet games.
Yes.
So yeah, I don't know, but obviously, like I am familiar with the
Yeah. I
general mechanics.
well, you do in fact know his game.
Yes, I do. In fact, know of him. I've heard of him.
But that is I like to like I can't remember why I asked that question originally. I was just like there was some show where I was clearly like grasping for a question for everyone in a lull. But like the more I asked it, like the more interesting it is because it is for like his ubiquity or whatever as like as a video game icon. The experience is often like, oh yeah, I've played Mario when I was younger. Or like I don't really have never played Mario at all. Like he's not quite.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm like, are there like diehard Mario fans?
Right?
Like, does he have like a cult of personality? I don't know.
Or
Maybe.
Or is he the perfect version of like the commercial product?
Right, like the bland sort of protagonist you can put yourself into. I don't know.
Like
I think there's like people that I don't know if anybody's like a diehard character, like oh man that person, but I think like mechanically, like I think the feel and this isn't me at all, but from people I've talked to, the feel of the jump in whatever their favorite one is, it's like profound to them.
Right.
So
Oh, interesting. So there's like diehard like fans of the specific mechanics, but maybe not the
Everyone I know, their favorite character is never Mario. It's always like Luigi or Peach or Daisy, never Mario.
Yeah, he is perhaps the video game platonic ideal of the like connects with everybody but connects with no one person in particular.
Yes.
Everyone's like, yeah, he's fine, I guess. He runs around. He jumps on guys. Kind of rude that he jumps on guys that are just minding their own business. I don't know what his deal is.
And it's a choice to jump on the guy
according
to the last interview. You can
Yeah.
Can you complete the game without killing any?
Yeah.
Not killing.
Oh well,
jumping.
I think if you jumped on me and you crushed me down and then I popped into 100 points, I think I would die.
Can you complete the game without jumping on any enemies? I don't know.
Yes. I mean, besides like bosses at the end, you can at least the first one definitely. I think pretty much all of them you can go through strictly as a pacifist. Aside from Bowser, you gotta take care of that guy.
I think I've seen even like Mario 64 speedruns where they don't like even engage with like any mechanics whatsoever. They're just like running at a specific inch of brick, like pixel, and just like jumping through the world. So I think if you want to be really weird, you can,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's the other like fascinating like the abstraction of Mario on two levels, on both like a speedrunning level and his kind of like Mario, like the plunder core icon, who has been so deeply abstracted into just existing as iconography.
Do you know who Muchi is?
Yes,
Okay, so you know about Muchi's like Mario Performance Symphony.
I I I've commissioned Muchi for a game. In fact,
Oh, nice.
yes, that extended like Big Bag Co. Uh, Plunder Ludix adaptation reinterpretation of Mario conceptually as like a as whatever he is.
Could you give a little context? I'm familiar with this.
Okay, so plunder. I like calling it plunder course because it sounds cooler. Uh,
Uh-huh.
I've heard people call it plunder ludix, but basically it's like the simplest, the closest thing is I would call it collage. It's like video game collage art where it's the repurposing of existing assets and like recontextualizing them into like basically a new piece of art.
Is this that I saw? Again, I don't. This was a long time ago. Those like they were using like the backgrounds. Like I'm picturing like a scrolling Mario background in a gallery setting. Is that what this is?
It is.
Or
I think that
I'm
is a
actually
version of it. There is
okay.
like, there's. I mean, we've been doing. I mean, people have been doing it basically forever. From like
Yeah.
Flash games, like ripping sprites for Flash games. Uh, but like the naming of it, I think, is a more recent thing. But
Gotcha.
like the
It's almost
idea.
like collage. It's like video game as collage.
Yes, that's because I think that it's like that's a different artistic intent than like a Flash game, like ripping a Mario sprite to make a platformer,
Right.
versus like fast car ripping like Wiggler and stuff, and then driving around. It's the kind of you know reinterpreting of familiar icons into different contexts. Collage, like you said.
Yeah. Or I guess like found object or whatever you call that with
Yeah,
sculpture. Yeah. It's cool.
yeah. It's because there are
Actually,
like. Sorry, go ahead.
how do people feel about is there anybody like in terms of like asset store stuff or like using your old stuff or is that part of anybody's practice or do you have like strong feelings about what it means to like make something versus find something and put it in a game?
No, go ahead. Go
No,
ahead.
I saw two people unmute themselves, and then seeing the other person immediately proceeded to then both of them mute themselves. But not, yeah, it's Nat. You can go ahead first. Hello, or not? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'm
Yeah.
going.
Yes.
You mean like pre-made assets or like really you mean like pre-made
Both.
assets?
Yeah, well, I've seen like in the indie game space sort of mixed thoughts, and then it feels like there's like a separate thing from like the consumer end, right? Like asset flip is like a derogatory that people throw around. So I'm just wondering, like, would you use pre-made assets? Do you have a notion about that? Like, do you feel like, oh, I need to make every single thing I put in my game, and that's important?
Oh, I
I
think
think.
in the RPG I'm so sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
In the RPG Maker community, it's a thing. People are really against the default assets of the game. And I understand because if everyone's using the same stuff, it kind of, I don't know, it's like everyone's gonna have their own story. So at least read the thing the person is writing. You don't have to. Maybe it's the same hair and the same, eyes, but it's a different story all the time. So I understand why some people would use the default assets. I don't think if you're just doing the thing for fun, it has to be fun for you. I personally like to make all of my assets because I like to learn everything about everything in the game deving space. Except programming, it was never fun for me. So I try to make everything from scratch. But I understand. I'm not against people using pre-made assets. I don't. I think it's fine. Just make the game.
Yeah, I'll say very quickly related to RPG Maker specifically. There was like a game jam within the last month or two, called the, if I remember right, the cookie cutter game jam or to something to that effect, where someone had made a, uh, basically there was like a map asset pack, like just a, here's a thing in RPG Maker, you have to use these, and it's a perfect example of, hey, look, a lot of people are given quite literally the same small number of assets, making all wildly different things.
Yeah, I feel like there's a like the distinction between something being like an asset flip game, I think, versus not, feels to be like purely commercial,
Right.
right? Like, I don't know. I don't have any issues with like using external assets as long as they're like used, like licensed and credited or whatever. I don't think it makes your game any less of a game per se. I think where it crosses into like asset flip territory is a matter of intent,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I'm thinking of it is because you brought up Bennett Foddy, and
Oh yeah.
this is the one with where you're climbing up a big junk pile.
Mm.
That's like explicitly, almost like aesthetically referencing like game found objects and like Unity
Yeah.
assets or things and such. It's almost like integral to the actual like art style and intent of what he's making in a really interesting way.
Yeah. And I think it's like an interesting sort of space to play with. And I
Mhm.
think that's kind of what Plunder Ludix is getting at. But yeah, I don't know. I think that if every single asset in every indie game had to be made you by the person making it, you'd see a lot fewer solo projects.
Yes. And like when you think about like how often do like film studios do that, like
Yeah.
make every single prop from scratch. I
No,
remember.
Steven Spielberg made every single chair by hand.
Yes.
He was out there
He's like,
sanding. And, yeah,
if I don't make all these chairs, it doesn't count as a movie that I made.
yeah.
It's just an asset flip. There was, I forget what it was. There was some movie that where like they literally did an asset flip where it was like, I think it was like I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about, I think it was like the Doctor Dolittle movie, the recent Doctor Dolittle movie has like a dragon or something, some kind of large CG animal that was just like from a different project. They didn't use it, and they just like, hey, give us your, let's use a 3D model.
That's awesome. I wish more, like, I think there should be like a statute of limitations, and then like the dragon from The Hobbit can just like show up in
Right.
like just whatever, just like a TV show or whatever. Just like you just see it around. I think that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Just like take it and just like, okay, fine, we'll paint him a couple different colors, but like all the long work of making that dragon is already done. Why do we need to make new dragons?
Exactly. That's why this economy is so messed up, is everybody's spending time making new dragons. It's just like
We have a long
reuse.
history. We've made so many dragons in our lifetime. We
Yeah, they're good enough, honestly. Like, let's just, yeah.
use the dragons you have at home.
And
Well,
what's
that's
gonna
what it
happen
was.
with
Yeah.
the dragon that's already done is gonna be sitting in the corner of a warehouse
Right.
collecting dust. And that's
That's,
not really, I don't think that's healthy for the dragon.
No. They need to get
yeah.
out and they need to be able to like walk around more and like really like stretch their legs. I feel like, you know, in my, I'm looking up to see if that's true, because in my brain, like, you know, how much stuff, like, weird little, like, background characters in movies are just like people plundering, like the studio costume, like, racks, and being like, okay, that's good, we don't need to make a new stuff for this.
Wasn't the famous like Michael Myers or one of those? It's like an old William Shatner head or
Yes.
whatever. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like a off the shelf William Shatner mask, but I think it's like spray painted and kind of
Yeah.
like roughed up a little.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's right. You work with what you have. You know, you make stuff quick and cheap, and it's rather better to have made it than to made it like perfect or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much that like yeah, I don't know. There's so much in environment art where every little thing just takes so much time. And it's like, is it really like ultimately it's gonna take up like 100 pixels or whatever, or like maybe you'll get close to it or whatever, but like even so, it's like I don't know, in the grand scheme of things, it's like it all just takes so much effort.
Right.
And yeah, I don't know. It's sort of I don't know, maybe that's like a broader
Right. And
issue with like fidelity and realism and those sorts of things as a kind of end all for particularly outside of the indie game space. It's just it's almost like frustrating. It's like these people that are like the most talented and creative people in the world are just like thousands of hours of their lives are spent making these like beautiful rocks to be like placed in a generic like
right.
Ubisoft
To
shooter.
to be seen for 1 second and someone speeds by it,
Exactly.
if seen at all, to appear on
Yeah,
screen for a second.
yeah.
And, like, you're right, right. And how many times does Ubisoft need to make that rock? You know, uh, how much is gained and lost in these kinds of things? Of, I guess, you know, if you want to be the world's greatest rock painter, the world's greatest rock sculptor, you make all those rocks. But, you know, if you go to whatever unity.store.givetherocks.com, you go there and you pile up all those rocks that you don't want to make. Like, we games need to better embrace the philosophy of quick, dirty, and cheap stuff, you know, and
A
just
lot
Yeah.
of people that I talk with about making art, they're always like, "But I'm a perfectionist, and I'm a perfectionist as well."
right.
I understand, but when you adopt that philosophy of just making a rock because you need to have a rock at that point in the games come out easier. The games come out at all, in fact.
Right. And better to have an imperfect thing someone sees, you know.
Yeah. Well, and it's also even in like environment art, oftentimes it's more about the impression of things being layered on top of other things than it
Right.
necessarily is like, you have the most like honestly, you could probably like just lay out some like spheres and cubes and stuff, and if done in an artful and layered enough way, your brain kind of does fill in the details. So I think people can actually get away with a lot less
Yes.
than they think they need.
Right. A lot of it
Um,
is framing and, like, you know,
right. Context, yeah.
let the pareidolia take over or whatever.
Yeah.
And, like, because I mean that is like what most of it. You know, you can the simplest shapes in the world or whatever. We can just throw a bunch of squares together, and we can recognize as a cityscape. You know,
Mhm.
just by, oh, they're different heights and different and slightly different widths. That's a city skyline without any texture, without anything at all. and a lot of that can right. It's like the importance of like the whole picture rather than like the minutia of games, which I think it's easy to get caught in. I guess in art in general too, like this tiny avenue, of like, oh, this one little thing needs to be perfect, and then that one little thing is a piece of an entire larger thing.
You can do a lot with just two colors. There's a few game jams that they have this rule. I think it's really really fun. Pixel art is good for that because you only have one brush. You just have this one little square,
Right.
and you have to be creative with that.
Maybe you can make the square bigger, and so they make more squares at once. But
yeah, but if the bigger square is just a lot of small squares.
Right. It's like, am I telling my computer to draw 4 squares at once rather than 1 square? But it is just broken down to squares. I trust you, Koyu, that you were here since the start. I'm going to take that on faith. But as we are approaching 2 hours, I need to start landing this plane, so to speak, because sometimes it's a thing where the plane spins around in the air for a while over the landing strip and doesn't quite get there in time. But the starting is the important part. So as we start to wind down, does anyone have any kind of non-promotional pressing statements, questions, things that need to get out before we get into the promotional portion of this show? Perfect. I will take the 30 seconds of silence as a no. So I've got to ask. I'm going to my things, and I have to remember who's in what order of things. Hey, Nat, what's up? How you doing? If people are looking for your work, where can they find that work? Where do you want to point them towards?
Nat Martis, anywhere. I think I changed my name on all my social medias to that. I have my most active are Instagram and Itch. That's it.
Perfect. And you can get from one to the other generally. I believe there's
yes.
You can travel. You can dig around and travel around and get your way there. All around. There was a one tiny moment when I was on your Tumblr at one point, and I was like, "Wait a minute, is this?" Because you had reposted the cover artist, a post that they had made. I was like, "Wait, is this that symbol like a symbol everybody uses and they're familiar with?" I'm like, "Oh no, wait, that's a repost because it's a tucked away little thing on Tumblr." But it's cool.
Yeah, I have a Tumblr too if you want to follow me. If anyone uses Tumblr still, I have a Tumblr. Tumblr is cool.
Yeah, a lot of these places are just like, it's nice to have a lot of different little places you go, and a lot of little places to find people. But yes. Perfect. Christine, hello.
Hello.
Where can people find your stuff if they're looking to find that stuff and you want them to find it?
Probably my itch, which is CXMI. Itch. And I think if you just Google my name, my itch will come up. But yeah, I have like grid posting paralysis, so I haven't posted to my Instagram in maybe a year and a half. And
you've got the perfect
website.
grid.
No, it's just I don't know. Every time I go in there to start posting something, I'm like, well, I've done so much stuff since I've last posted, and then I have to and then I'm like, there's too much to do, and then I get overwhelmed, and then I'm just not gonna post, and then it just more things stack up. So I don't know.
That is I am very tolerant. I very barely like to post on any website, but I'll do it at least once a month.
Yeah. I gotta get into some sort of groove or something.
Yeah.
But now it just feels like it's been too long, and I don't know.
Right.
I'll get to it.
That is, it's the problem of each person is expected to be like a polished content creator or something, So it's like,
yeah.
you have to be like, sorry, I haven't been posting lately. It's like,
And I promise I've been doing stuff.
Right.
Here's like all the stuff I've done. It's a huge carousel now. Sorry. Like, I don't know.
right here, I since I last posted, I did about 30 things.
Yeah.
Here are 30 things. I hope you see them all. Oops, you saw
Right.
one of them.
And it feels like disingenuous to post something like one at a time of something I did like a year and a half ago. It's like, I made this game. And it's like, but yeah, I made it in like 2015. And like, I can't just pretend like I just made it. Like, I don't know.
Right.
So here I am stuck in a jail of my own creation.
Well, I'll say, I'm looking at this thing. I'm like, I was on my own Instagram. I was like, hey, there's a lot of people. I'm like, I don't think I follow any of these people. What is the point of Instagram in the first place if you don't even see the people you follow?
It's true. It's true. I'm also on Blue Sky.
Yeah.
It's the same as my itch handle. And yeah.
Yeah, I think you can kind of get around, from one to the other. Just keep looking around.
Yeah. You poke around.
Yes. Perfect. And Jacob, if people are looking around, how can they look around to find your stuff?
Sure. Yeah, I mostly just use my own name on the internet for better or worse, but potterfield.itch.io is my itch, and most active probably on Blue Sky, and that's J Potterfield on there. Blue Sky. So,
Perfect. No, it's very handy when you can just use your name to be like, hey, you want to find me? Just look for my name. Especially if you luck out and it's like good enough that you just enough people don't also just use that you're like, oh, you just find it. And if you actually look for that, you'll just find me.
Yeah, I don't actually think there's anyone else online that has my specific name as far as I know. So, yeah,
That's
that's
great to have
pretty good.
inborn SEO.
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh, perfect. Yes. I searched it, and the first thing that came up was, in fact, your itch account.
That's good to know.
So it working as intended. And folks, Indiepocalypse, of course, you can find at indiepocalypse.com. It's the easiest way to find that thing because that's the name of the thing. There it is. I was like, how do I get rid of this bot? And then how do I close the thing that gets rid of the bot? And I couldn't find it. And then I found it. Bots eliminated. Indiepocalypse.com. It's the easiest place to find Indiepocalypse. It's where you go and buy, if you buy issues like 73 and 75, these nice people here will eventually get money. They're new participants, not used to Nat and Jacob, of course, riding high off of the first week of Indiepocalypse. And then the second week they'll be like, "Isn't Andrew supposed to pay me?" And I go, "Aren't people supposed to pay me first for these issues?" And if you do that, then they will join the exciting life of Andrew PayPal's me $5 to $6 American dollars every 6 to 9 months, give or take. And how do you become part of that that ecosystem? Of course, it's indiepocalypse.com/submit is where you submit games that you make. If you're sitting on a game and go, I don't know if it's good enough for this, chances are it's probably good enough for this. It's only the people who make the worst trash that I'm not interested in, who have the brazen confidence to post all of their projects without even thinking about it. If you're working within the art space, there's a good chance that you're close to it. You're in there somewhere. indiepocalypsecourse.com/newsletter/Patreon/ other stuff that I'm sure exists. But if you need it, just type /that thing and you'll find it. Except don't type /that thing. A thing I keep forgetting to do. I should just make the hover redirect right now and not post it to anything, but just so I have it, just so it exists. It's just so I will have a thing, so when I type in indiepocalypse.com/that thing, it'll go to something, which will probably just go to the website. Just so the URL exists for my own personal satisfaction. Done. Thank you, me, for finally nailing that down. Anyway, that's it. I think that's the show. It's Jacob, Christine, Nat, thank you all for joining me here today. Great to have you. Great to have these little hangout chats and conversations, and everyone out there in the present day, in the future, whenever the past, if you've time traveled and brought podcasts back to the past for people to listen to, and you brought this one for some reason. Thank you all for listening. That's it. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.